All right, welcome. Today I am going to introduce a unified framework of reality called the Inversion Principle. This theory proposes that quantum, molecular, spatial, and perceptual phenomena all spring from a single topological law, right? Um, our journey will span scales from electrons to consciousness. And so the core concept really just explains that reality exists as a dual, non-orientable superposed manifold. And local acts of orientation, or, oops, holy hell, I was trying to collapse, resolve this duality and generate the structured asymmetries that we observe. The manifold's topology, though, shapes everything from spin to perception. And so this will include all observable systems, quantum, molecular, spatial, and perceptual. And this would just be a single manifestation of the inversion principle. Traditional physics treats time as a one-dimensional phenomenon. But I think we should treat time as a manifold with three different axes, not one. Each point would be defined by T1, T2, T3, and space wouldn't be fundamental, but rather an emergent property of time. So the x-axis, z-axis, and y-axis are all emergent properties of a three-dimensional time manifold. And what I mean by that is space is not fundamental, but rather emergent, and it arises as a projection when the manifold collapses and orients locally. Topologically, think of this Möbius strip here, where it's non-orientable, continuous, inside and outside connected. At the quantum level, though, right, particles exist in superposed states. Multiple orientations exist simultaneously, and electron spin illustrates this very well, right? Each spin can be up or down, quote unquote, uh, a dual projection. And measurement doesn't create orientation, but selects one orientation from the manifold itself, converting the superposed potential into a local truth. And quantum interference patterns, right, emerge naturally as expressions of non-orientable time. And so we understand this using this non-orientable manifold that we would call time, and um, we would understand this using the inversion principle. Um, let's go to the next slide. Biology mirrors quantum inversion through chirality. This molecular chirality. Life's molecules show um, homochirality, where left-handed amino acids are are left-handed, and DNA sugars are right-handed, which is an inherited asymmetry, fossilized from a quantum quantum parity violation, right? The first stable collapse of superposition translates to mirrored potential into coherent molecular structure. Our universe's geometric foundation is non-orientable. Think Möbius strips and Klein bottles, as I said before. The inside and outside blur. There really is no difference, and all points connect via inversion. This continuum underpins space where observer and observed are not strictly separated, but perspective driven within the manifold, right? My existence on this point would be different from my existence over here. Even though I'm on the same plane and it's non-orientable, I would not know because my local existence here would shape my truth. Same goes for here. If I'm on top of here, I would say, oh, I'm outside. If I'm here, I'm inside. But the truth is, both outside and inside exist at the same time. Our perception and consciousness mirror these physical quantum collapses or spatial collapses. Excuse me. Sound like Patrick Mahomes. Observation is active orientation, um, aligning with one manifold projection. Each observer's reality is a local cross section of the manifold, shaped by position, emotion, and cognition. And so consciousness is topology made aware, right? Or the universe being aware of the manifold folding to observe itself. It sounds very convoluted, but I think it makes sense. And so consciousness would just be a participatory orientation, right? And each observer, based on that participatory orientation, would experience a local reality. Across all scales, the same pattern really prevails. You have quantum's dual potential, you have molecular chiral symmetry, you have spatial non-orientable geometry, and you have perceptual dual cognition, right? Perceptual duality. All these things are dual, yet inverse. Each is an instance of the universal oscillation between continuity and local orientation. Space is not fundamental, right? We can abstract this because we understand that it emerges through time collapse. When moving from point A to point B, um, what's measured is time is passage, not necessarily distance, right? Space is just the projection of oriented time. If I start at point A and I walk 5 minutes, right? The distance I covered is a projection of the passage of time, right? So at point a four-dimensional being wouldn't actually have to walk. They'd go to a time where they were at point A or at point B in order to travel. Um, so I think that's very, very interesting. Let's see. Space is the projection of oriented time, and without collapse, it doesn't exist as an independent property. Space literally needs time. We understand this through our x and y axes. You cannot move without time. Time is the independent variable. It is non-orientable, and space is just its oriented projection. Excuse me. Classical reality emerges as decoherence. Orientation, stabilization within the manifold, environmental interactions would drive local collapse. So quantum to classical transition or decoherence is a natural result, not necessarily a mystery, but a feature of inversion, a feature of local orientation collapse, right? This would emerge once you pick one, at being the observer. And so our classical reality isn't as complicated as we like to make it seem. It's just a frozen quantum superposition. Two things exist, but when you choose one, that becomes reality. That's all. And this framework explains quantum superposition. homochirality, the observer effect, emergence of space, decoherence, and eventually the unity of consciousness in physics. I think the inversion principle links all scales without arbitrary boundaries because of its fundamental principle. To advance this framework, we must formalize the mathematics of 3DI, or a three-dimensional non-orientable manifold dynamic, right? And connect it to quantum field theory and relativity, and design experiments for validation, and where collaboration and critique are vital. Reality is not built from matter, but from orientation within non-orientability. The world oscillates between potential and existence, folding continuity into continuity into form, where the cosmos are a perceptual inversion process, a oscillation between being and non-being. And I think that is probably the best explanation. Um, so let's talk about quantum field theory as it pertains to this framework. Fields on a non-orientable manifold. In quantum field theory, fields are defined on spacetime, right? In my theory, electron fields or photon fields would exist on the 3DI manifold, and behavior, symmetries, and interactions are governed by the dual non-orientable time topology. So superposition would also be a natural embrace of these field states. And so in the inversion principle, these superpositions reflect the manifold's inherent duality. Collapse is the manifold locally orienting a quantum event, such as particle detection, or it translates to a local choice of manifold orientation. In terms of chirality and parity violation, in quantum field theory, some fields violate parity, ergo weak force interactions. And I think this framework connects this fundamental asymmetry to the underlying manifold dynamics. Chirality arises as the first macroscopic collapse of manifold superposition. In quantum field theory, interactions are local in quote unquote space time, right? I propose that locality itself emerges from the orientation of the time manifold, and space just becomes a projection or a lower dimensional projection of collapsed time. There is a branch of quantum field theory studying non-trivial topologies like Möbius strips or Klein bottles. Um, and I think this mathematical formalism would be a natural tool for modeling this, but I have no contact with anybody in that field. Quantum field theory is built around symmetry groups, rotational, Lorentz gauge. In the inversion principle, all these symmetries would arise as manifestations of manifold inversion operations and orientation choices. And so, in summary, in traditional quantum field theory, fields exist on quote-unquote space-time. In the inversion principle, fields are defined on a dual non-orientable time manifold, incorporating superposition, collapse, and emergent space as direct consequences of this manifold topology, which I think explains our decoherence issue. It explains our local orientation collapse. It explains our quantum to classical transition. It explains our classical reality as frozen quantum superposed states. I appreciate you guys for listening. Let me know if you have any thoughts, concerns, questions. Thank you for watching the video.